Hello everyone, Kaisen here, and in today's video, some people may point their pitchforks at me, and maybe some won't. Either way, this is something I've actually wanted to talk about for quite a bit, and being a prominent figure in the Lookism community, I wanted to share my opinion about the series as a whole. The recent events in Lookism have us confused, shook, and absolutely distraught. If I had $1 for every time someone yeeted themselves off a building, I'd have $3, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened thrice. Once again, I'm Kaiseni, and I cover manhwa content ranging from A to Z, and in today's video, I discuss what's happening in Lookism, why this arc specifically is so absurd, and speculate about what PTJ is planning. But before we begin, over 85% of people who watch my videos aren't subscribed. That's over 304,000 people. So, if you enjoy my content, please subscribe. It's free and you can always unsubscribe later. Thank you for the sponsor of this video as well, Novo. If you want TikToks, Reels, or Shorts edited for cheap, but still look great, then they're perfect. Click the link in the description below, and without further ado, what is happening to Lookism? Yeah. Lookism's absurdity can be attributed to how ridiculously big the story is getting, and I'm not talking about other manhwas being involved like Laws of Good Child or Questism, rather the story we have now. See, the change from high school slice of life to absolute full-blown gang wars was gradual and widely accepted by the community, and the reason for that is because of the pacing of the story allowed these absurd events to feel natural to us audience and readers. Imagine how crazy it would be to go from high school to having a big bad villain cosplay a kite in over 5 chapters. It almost sounds unreal, but it isn't, because that's basically what happened in the last few chapters of Lookism. Charles Choi is someone who is portrayed as essentially the big bad of Lookism. He's done incredibly heinous things to our protagonists, and the actions he's taken has solidified him as the prime villain of Lookism. Being the prime villain, you'd expect for him to be important enough to keep around in the long run. You would have expected him to be desperate for self-preservation. You'd think that he'd be someone willing to do anything in order to live. Charles Choi is someone who's known for his intellect, and it's not very in character for him to do something so reckless like go bungee jumping without the rope. And honestly, it just makes me kind of question the integrity of the story a little bit. But I of course still have high hopes for what PTJ comes up with. There's a lot of ways it could play out, but the most likely scenario is Charles having a second body, and this works for multiple reasons. Number 1, narratively, this would be the perfect move. In the recent chapters, the character of Charles Choi is now a target of hate and prosecution, rightfully so by the way. But having all of this attention, obstacles and hurdles in his way, as someone with a grand plan of how he wants things to play out, public prosecution just becomes too much of an issue to work properly. Hence, logging off Charles and switching to his alt not only takes the heat off of him, but also conceals his identity and also gives the MC a challenge which is guaranteed to extend the story further. I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if we spent another 200 chapters figuring out who Charles Choi's second body is. Talking about the reckless writing, this isn't the first time we've seen this out of PTJ either. Back in the Cheonliang arc, which is a good arc by the way, I'm not disputing that, but what I do want to talk about is the sudden revelation of Mujin Jin's existence. In the past, I've always admired PTJ's skill in foreshadowing. Some good examples of this are before Daniel's copy ability and strength are revealed, we get tidbits and pieces of what's to come. When he tore that punching machine, or when that aura of Zack appeared when he copied him. In fact, UI was foreshadowed in chapter 18, a full 300 chapters before UI was even introduced, and that's something I admired from PTJ. So seeing a character, and such an important one at that, be introduced so suddenly honestly kind of shocked me. It was confusing and didn't quite fit into the narrative as well. It more so seemed like they needed to give Shin Myung-cheon a reason why he is the way he is, which was via Mujin. But that was something I was willing to forgive because it was genuinely a good arc, and that gave us a lot of what we wanted from the series. From more fight scenes and fights from the first generation kings, as well as the zeroth generation characters as well. I could forgive Cheonliang for the shock of that, but honestly, if they pull the same stuff with Charles Choi's death, then it'll only taint Lookism's reputation in the long run. The fights are amazing and well choreographed, the art has improved so much since 2013, but all of that doesn't matter if we don't get a conclusive story that makes sense and checks out. There's so many things to point out in the recent chapters. What's the reason for taking Gun out of UI? How does base Gun plus all of his injuries somehow beat UI Daniel? someone who defeated Gun before and was made out to be the second coming of Gabrielle Kim. Why the hell did Charles Choi test his vertical on a ledge? Just what is happening? If Lookism keeps this string of plot holes at this pace, then it's safe to say that Lookism may as well die. Sticking to our roots, the evolution of Lookism from a high school slice of life story to a story of gang wars and intense battles has been a source of both excitement and concern for its readers. The shift in tone and the scale seems to be reaching a point where the story's integrity is being tested. And the recent developments, man. In the recent chapters, the Images series' Big Bad, who's been portrayed as calculating and ruthless, a mastermind basically, doing something as reckless as jumping off a building without a clear plan, it feels out of character and kind of jarring. It really makes you wonder if the story is starting to lose its grip on its own logic. Charles Choi has been established as a villain who is not just feared but also respected for his cunning wit and his intellect. His actions have had profound and often devastating impacts on the protagonist, solidifying his role as the ultimate antagonist. Given this, one would expect him to be prioritizing his survival above all else, making the recent turn of events difficult to reconcile with what we know of his character. The notion that someone like Charles would take such a drastic and seemingly foolish action raises concern about the story's direction. Is PTJ leading us towards a revelation that will justify this behavior, or is this a sign of reckless writing that could damage the story's credibility? Honestly, it's a lot harder to tell. If and Lookism will continue on this path, introducing major twists without careful build-up that has characterized its earlier arcs, there is a real danger that the story's reputation could suffer. Fans have come to expect a certain level of coherence and internal consistency, and while they may be forgiving in occasional lapses, too many could erode the trust that PTJ has built over their years. The art and the choreography of the fights continue to impress, but if the narrative loses its way, these strengths may not be enough to keep the series afloat. The recent questions surrounding Gun's defeat of UI Daniel and Charles Choi's bizarre actions are a symptomatic of a larger issue. The story seems to be at a crossroads, where it needs to decide whether to prioritize spectacle or coherence to the story. If PTJ can find a way to reconcile these events and recent developments with the established logic of the world that's already existing, Lookism could continue to thrive, honestly, but if these plot holes continue to widen, there is a real risk that the story could lose its very elements that made it so compelling in the first place. The stakes are high not just for the characters, but for Lookism as a whole. I do sound a little redundant and repetitive, but my opinion really is just very, very black and white. I didn't want to have a lot of nuances to what I think, because to its core, what I think Lookism needs is just more expansive writing. I don't mind PTJ adding new characters, or on the latter killing them off, but what I do need is context, and whether you admit it or not, the series is moving way too fast to provide any correctly. But yeah, that's my take on Lookism's current situation. Do you agree or disagree with this video? I feel like the opinions on this video would be pretty mixed, but let me know what you guys think, and thanks for watching. So yeah.